The first part of Saw is a lot more than just a superfluous intro. A lot of the chord progressions and themes reoccur throughout the album, and it really helps to establish the mood at the beginning of this journey. Very much inspired by Barber's Adagio for strings, Goretzky, Arvo Pärt, much more 20th century classical harmony as opposed to Baroque harmony. It's really worth taking the time to listen through it as opposed to skipping on to track 2 when the band kicks in.
So Icarus and I, definitely a favorite track of mine on Suspended At Aphelion. That is probably due to understanding of the sheer amount of hours and labor that went into crafting the melodies for Icarus and I. I know that Tom and I spent the better part of 2 weekends just beating that song up. It's melodic in its own right, which gives you a lot of avenues vocally, but we walked away from it feeling as though we had selected and written and recorded ultimately the right melodies for that song to help sell it the way that we wanted to sell it. I know that outside of the time that Tom and I spent, I bet I spent 20 hours in Raintrack Studios working on specific parts within that song. So, you think when you invest that much time in developing vocal melodies, you want to be proud of it, and we are proud of it. I think it begins as it should, and it finishes in a climactic fashion that is indicative of While Heaven Wept music. So I'm definitely pumped for Icarus and I to actually not open the album, but kind of, as introspectus finishes, to go right into that. I think it's the way we wanted to start this record.
Part 2 of Saw has that epic triplet feel that's characteristic of Viking-era Bathory, our old tour mates Primordial, and our own Empires and Further Shore. Except harmonically, it's way out there. Definitely more 20th century classical again. And it also has the most glorious chorus in the history of While Heaven Wept. So it's worth hanging around until that 5-minute mark at least. Part 3 of Saw segues directly out of Part 2, and it twists through some 4AD territory, not unlike Dead Can Dance, This Mortal Coil, Cocteau Twins, etc. It's very stark, very ambient, and then from there it really builds into some pretty intense riffing, something that you'd hear on those latter-day Death albums. A lot of people probably aren't aware that I spent those first 3 dates of the final Death tour hanging out with Chuck and those guys. And this may be a little tip of the hat to them.
So what stood out for me with Part 3 and Saw, Ardor. Initially I was really happy with the vocals that we had recorded with that song. But when Michelle went in to do her parts, I think by that time, which was about a week after I had finished with the vocals, Tom had written an additional harmony for that part, and Michelle killed it. And I'm so glad that it was written, because I can't imagine Ardor without Michelle's part. It just brings those vocal lines to life. And I think it kind of, it shows the flexibility that we have as a group of singers in this band. More importantly, it shows, I think, the magic that happens when we all sing together. So I really, really dig Part 3. I'm broken too.
Part 4 of Saw is absolutely one of the most heartfelt and emotionally intense segments on the record, and in fact out of the entire While Heaven Wept discography, so you know it's pretty intense. I suppose it qualifies as a ballad, but it's definitely based on a classical form and has a very epic guitar solo at the end. I guess it falls somewhere between Pink Floyd, Journey, and again more 4AD, Dead Can Dance, Cocteau Twins, and so forth.
So, Heartburst, definitely another track that I'm in love with on Suspended At Aphelion. I'll say that because I think that song embodies what While Heaven Wept has set out to do for the last 25 years, and that is reach people at the deepest depths of their emotions. And I'll tell you, there's probably not a more emotional track on Suspended At Aphelion than Heartburst. I know as a singer, I was pushed completely out of my comfort zone to record this. One, I'm not accustomed to singing in such lower registers, but outside of that, I was just concerned that I couldn't sell it to the extent that it needed to be sold. I know that Tom had written the melody to this from top to bottom and had it complete when we were doing the pre-production phase. So it was great that was done. The question was, would we be able to do this? There was even at one moment in time the idea that Tom would actually sing that song. I know there was a contingent of fans that probably would have appreciated that, but he ultimately decided not to do that. And when I knew that onus would fall on me, I just wanted to deliver. But as I listen to that song, I will get chill bumps to this very day. I've probably spun it 200 times over the last couple months, just because that's what you do when you come out of a recording project. You want to hear it and ultimately feel proud of what you've accomplished. And Heartburst is no exception. I think that one's going to get people. If you are a loyal WHW fan, you're surely going to understand where that comes from. If that just so happens to be your first taste of WHW, who knows what the listener will do walking away after that one. We hope that it brings you into our camp, because that's us in a nutshell. Heartburst for me, definitely a favorite. Can't wait for the fans to sink their teeth into that one, man.
It's no secret that While Heaven Wept have always championed vinyl, considering the number of vinyl releases we've put out over the past 25 years compared to CDs. And part 5 is really where side 2 begins. And it starts out with some very intense analog keyboard action a la Tangerine Dream, Asherah Temple, Popol Vuh, etc., before it yields to one of the most intense instrumental tracks that we've ever done. Pretty confident that I pushed Mark Zonder into some territory that he's never been before, and I was referencing Baitor and the Snow Dog and Return to Forever, Mahavishnu, to get some of those crazy drum fills out of him, and some of the guitar breaks are coming more from, we try to be a little bit more creative with those as opposed to just throwing some mindless shred in there. So hopefully the musicians out there will appreciate this. And as an interesting aside, the main riff is the only thing on this record that is archival in nature. A lot of our older records, we're still going through all this material that's accumulated over the years. In this case, the main riff of the song actually predates While Heaven Wept, going back to the mid-'80s.